Welcome to Cody and Joey's Reviews. I am Cody.
And I'm Joey.
And today we're talking about Marvel's Ant-Man. And you can't believe how excited I am to talk about a Marvel movie on here. For those of you that don't know, I am a huge Marvel fan, have been ever since Iron Man came out back in 2008, have read dozens of comics based on the Marvel property. Now, Ant-Man was sort of a hard sell for everyone because, he's a superhero who shrinks, you know?
It's much different than what we've seen before.
Yeah, who's going to really take something like that seriously? But honestly, in my opinion, I was really excited for it, not because of the character himself. I do like the Ant-Man character, but he is kind of goofy, he is kind of campy for today's audiences, but having seen what Marvel has done in the past with movies like Iron Man, Thor, even Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel like Marvel has a very good streak of taking C-list, D-list characters and making them amazing for today's audiences. Now, what's your background with the Marvel Universe?
Well, I've been a fan of Marvel just like everyone else in terms of Spider-Man and like the Hulk. I saw Spider-Man when it came out in 2001, and I watched the whole trilogy. I watched the original Hulk that came out in 2003, and then the sequel in 2008. And I've seen most of the new Marvel Universe movies. I think the ones that kind of like interconnect with the like three different phases. So far I'd say Captain America 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy are my two favorite Marvel movies, and I want to say that this one is like at that top three list as well.
I wouldn't say so much as the top at my top three list.
Okay.
Definitely, you mentioned Winter Soldier, which is my favorite Marvel movie, and possibly my second favorite comic book movie. But this movie, I feel like it does do that character justice. That's what Marvel does so well. I'm so glad to see that they took this campy character and made him likable. They got, first of all, Paul Rudd to play the character. I think that was an amazing choice. Here's an actor who has great screen charisma. I've seen some of his work, not all of it, but I think that Paul Rudd brings sort of a likability, a winking sort of sense of humor with his audience, much like Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy, and I felt like that was actually a great choice. And what do you think of Paul Rudd in this movie?
Yeah, at first I was a little concerned that Paul Rudd was going to play a superhero because I'm used to it in, like being in comedies like I Love You, Man. That was a really funny movie. And I thought it was sort of like a similar concern that audience members had in like the 80s when Michael Keaton was cast to play Batman, especially in like a Tim Burton film. But, he ultimately proved everyone wrong, and he did a great job with the role.
Yeah, definitely. They managed to take this character and sell me on Ant-Man action. When you really think about it, the whole idea of shrinking, how does that really apply to a superhero? But definitely they show you that here's a character that manages to stand next to Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, Hulk, all of them, even the more recent ones like Falcon and Vision, and says, hey, I deserve to stand amongst you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like in terms of being spoiler-free, I think it's safe to say that Ant-Man does stand a very good chance against any of the Avengers.
And certainly I look forward to seeing him. Of course, Paul Rudd has been confirmed to be in next year's Captain America Civil War. Mm-hmm. Very excited to see him in next year's movie, but I'd say the biggest problem I really have with this movie, and a problem I have with most of the official Marvel movies at least, the villain is not that good, I have to say. Now, Yellow Jacket is being, controlled by a character named David Cross. In the comics, Yellow Jacket is actually a split personality of Hank Pym. They didn't go that way for this movie. They instead brought in a different character. And the dynamic between him and Hank Pym, having David Cross be a Hank Pym, protege, I really felt like that would have been a great way to play this character. But basically, not to give any real spoilers away, the reason that he goes crazy, puts on the suit, is, well, he's driven insane. And honestly, that's not a very good character development, strategy for me. They did it last year. No, they did it this year in Age of Ultron, where basically Ultron was just crazy. it doesn't make a good villain, and honestly, this villain does fall flat with all of the other ones.
Well, I mean, besides that character, I really enjoyed the other story arcs. I mean, seeing with Ant-Man himself, Paul Rudd plays a former husband, and he's a father, and like the whole story kind of like revolves around him trying to get his daughter to admire him again and be able to spend time with his daughter, and he has to deal with like really tough parents and all of that. And I thought that it was a really cool way to like redeem himself by becoming Ant-Man again and kind of becoming like a symbol of hope. So I really enjoyed that there was a really tight-knit story, and they really focused on maybe like 3 or 4 characters, but they still had some characters that were really funny to watch, and there was a really delicate balance of humor and action and drama all combined into one.
Yeah, and you definitely said a tight-knit story, honestly. This screenplay was written by Edgar Wright. This movie, fun fact, was supposed to be the first Marvel Cinematic Universe film to be released. Delays happened and all that, and it was pushed to Phase 2. The original director was supposed to be Edgar Wright. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Wright. I think he makes amazing films, from Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim, and The World's End. He's sort of a cult director. I don't think many people know about him. But it was a real worrisome thing to happen when eventually Edgar Wright left the project because of creative differences. And I really think that it wasn't really officially stated what those reasons were. But I do believe adding in all the Avengers stuff, sort of references to Tony Stark, Falcon, and all that, really, I think it just pushed Edgar Wright away. He wanted to tell a self-contained story, and that's not Marvel's plan at this point. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I do feel like some of Edgar Wright's fingerprints are left on here, and it really does help the movie, especially in its heist plot. I feel like a lot of things are set up in the beginning that do pay off in the end, and I think it's just a pretty well-written script, minus the whole villain thing. I think they could have worked a little harder on that.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point about Edgar Wright's fingerprints kind of still being on the film. Because, yes, like, they're trying to, like, interconnect Ant-Man with, like, the rest of the Marvel Universe. But really, for the most part, 98% of the film feels like a standalone movie. And I thought that was really clever. I mean, they made this heist story with the little gimmick of, Ant-Man being able to, like, shift in size. So that created for some really clever set pieces and for some really clever action sequences that were both funny and really fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And I do feel like this is sort of unique for Marvel. I don't really recall many of their heroes being sort of anti-heroes at first. I mean, Scott Lang, he's not a really bad guy, but he was sent to prison. He did commit crimes and sort of thing. And I think that is an interesting aspect here, that we have a hero at the beginning who isn't that heroic. I think the closest thing that comes to is Tony Stark, where he is sort of an anti-hero. And certainly they do play a lot of Iron Man sort of storytelling here, what with mentors and teachers, with Obadiah staying between Tony Stark. Well, they have the same thing here between Hank Pym and David Cross. And also, you do talk about the characters. I think the strongest relationship in this movie is between Hank Pym and his daughter,
Absolutely.
Hope Van Dyne. I feel like the connection that these two actors had to each other was very real, very well thought out, and very believable to me. And honestly, out of all the relationships in the movie, it is the strongest and the one that gives this movie the most flavor to it.
Definitely. I really liked seeing Michael Douglas again in a movie, and, it was great seeing Paul Rudd be Paul Rudd. I mean, like, they really designed the script to be really funny and enjoyable, and I thought that it fit well for, like, a summer blockbuster. And when I was kind of going through, like, the checklist of what makes a Marvel movie, this movie had it all. It had the Stan Lee cameo, it had the post-credit scenes, it had the humor, it had the action, and yeah, I mean, if I were to rate this film, I'd give it a 4 stars, 4 stars out of 5.
Definitely, that would sort of be my rating too. I am so glad that Marvel, after 12 films now and their official studio release, that they managed to keep up this sort of consistency and quality. And certainly, in my opinion, it isn't the best one out there, but it does rank with, the first Captain America. It does rank up there with, I would say, Guardians almost. I feel like Guardians had a lot more fun than this movie. I feel like the father-daughter relationship kind of, I don't know, it sort of
Well, there was a lot more drama, I think, involved in this movie as opposed to, like, Guardians.
Yeah, definitely. Guardians was more sort of a popcorn, sort of fun Star Wars type film, and
absolutely.
definitely this movie isn't that, but it's sort of on that level, and I'm actually so happy to walk out and see that, you know, Marvel has done an amazing job with Ant-Man, and basically showed me, at least, that Ant-Man does rank with all the other Avengers, which is good because Ant-Man was an original Avenger in the comic, and that does make me happy to see that they have done this character justice. So, yeah, my rating would be 4 out of 5 stars.
Definitely.
Definitely recommend anyone see it.
If you like the Marvel movies, then you're going to love this one.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you for joining us here at Cody and Joey Reviews.
And stay tuned.